Hello, tribe. Welcome to the podcast. I am very excited today to introduce to you a author, Cate Howell, Dr. Cate Howell. She's going to be joining us shortly, but she has a very influential and grand presence in everything that she's done. And I really wanted to value her presence with us and her taking time to share time with us and me doing that would ensure that I get you to hear everything that this woman has been up to in her career, in her health career. So, though today we'll be talking mostly about her book, I want to share with you just what this woman's been up to. Um, and I'm just going to locate her bio here. So, Dr. Cate has been working in the health industry for over 40 years now. Her career began as an occupational therapist, and then she studied medicine and became a GP, a general practitioner. And from there, she trained in various psychotherapies and worked in the community and the university medical practices and as a defense GP. So, and it's usually been around the mental health focus. Dr. Cate's studies included, again, the occupational therapy, medicine, a master's, and a PhD. She's also trained in hypnotherapy, couple therapy, CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, acceptance and commitment therapy. You may have seen it as ACT, something that I've also been trained in, interpersonal therapy, life coaching, well-being, mental health, first aid. She's also been involved in research and has been published in academic journals. So Cate was also awarded the Conspicuous Service Medal whilst in the RAAF, which is the Royal Australian Air Force, a year 2000 Churchill Fellowship, and in 2012, the Order of Australia Medal for Services to Medicine and Mental Health. That's impressive. So Dr. Cate has written 6 books now, and they are in the range from anxiety, depression, counseling, intuition, even men's mental health, and now women's mental health. The Flourishing Woman, a mental health and well-being guide, was published in October. So currently, Dr. Cate has a focus on teaching and writing, and she's winding down her clinical practice. But I think she's still got a lot to get up to in the world today. So I'm really happy to have her here. And I hope that you can remove all your distractions and sit with us and have a listen. And we'll just pause for a moment while we have Cate join us for the call. All right, tribe, here she is. Here's the magical moment. The flourishing woman in her flesh is here with us now. This is a real gift. Thank you so much, Cate, for showing up for our tribe. I've talked a lot about this book and its anticipation since it's been released in October. And they're looking forward to having meet you and find a way to get in connection with you. So I'll make sure, tribe, that you get all access to Cate's details that she's given me. So each of you can find your way to her and work with her or whatever relationship you want to build with her. But for now, I have her attention, so I'm going to make the best of it. So welcome, Dr. Cate. How would you like me to refer to you as?
Cate is fine. A lot of people call me Dr. Cate, but Cate, I respond to Cate.
Well, I had shared with the tribe a little earlier your vast CV. It's very impressive. And I'm really quite curious, can you share with us now what you're up to these days?
So these days I'm actually winding down my clinical practice because I've been drawn more to teaching and writing, and I have been doing that for a number of years, but I really want to focus on it in this stage of my career. Basically, it gives me great joy, and always my aim has been to help people, and I've done a lot of work, one-on-one or in groups, but I really want to get the messages out far and wide now.
Nice. Do you have an audience that you really feel from your experience could be served best from this message?
Well, I think my audience is mostly women but not exclusively, mostly women, and it's mostly women in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s.
Mhm.
I'm saying that because, my clinical practice probably was like that. And also when I go and speak at events, that's probably the main audience.
Mm.
But having said that, a lot of the messages, for example, that I talk about in the Flourishing Woman, they're very applicable, to all ages, so across the lifespan. And so at a recent, at the launch where we had about 150 people come and listen, there were young mums there, for example, and there were
Nice.
85-year-olds there. So yeah, I
Oh,
think the
that's
messages are
beautiful.
there for everyone.
Yeah, when I read through your book, I have a plethora of post-it notes. That's kind of how I read books. But I have to tell you, it's a good thing that I got a wind of you and your name and what you're up to way back, well, a couple months ago when that book launched, because from how I work is I'll get books from the library as much as possible, see if they're going to support my tribe or community or what leaders I work with. And if they do, if they're fantastic, then I'll order them. So I snuck in there. Well, I got it right from the get go, and I read it originally from there. And I'm halfway through going, this is too much. Like I've had like tons of post-it notes all over the place from your takeaways and your tips, and how you write the book is fabulous. And I thought I'm just gonna have to buy it.
And keep
So
it.
I can
Yeah.
write my own notes in it, right? So I'm just going to tell the tribe right now. First of all, the library has on back order. I don't even know how deep that is because I saw 3 reservations even up to today. So I know I wouldn't even get it until February next year from my local library if I wanted it. So just go ahead and order the book, and we'll leave those details in the comments section on YouTube if you're there, or on the podcast. We'll make sure that you have the link that Cate wants to supply you to purchase the book from. But so many note taking opportunities. And I just want to share for me personally is the clarification you gave me on self belief and self acceptance. That was, something so simple was so magnanimous for me. So I want to thank you personally for those two. And I'm looking down right now because I'm looking at them on my post-it notes. If I could, here, I could just show them to you just for proof. Here they are. Like I just have them in front of me because there's such great distinctions, and I share those with my leaders. So that's just one little tidbit that Cate shares in it. It's really phenomenal. So the book addresses a lot of topics, right? Like you cover some ground in that book, which is why I feel like it's one that belongs on our bookshelf and we keep going back to, right? It's one of those resourceful ones. But what inspired you to write that book? There's lots in there.
Yeah, there's a lot. So my mind, as you probably will have worked out, is always reflecting, pondering. And I tend to be, I'm a curious person, and I'm fairly intuitive, and I just respond to what comes in front of me, basically. And so I wrote a book for men a couple of years ago because I was doing a lot of work at that time in defense. And obviously there's men and women there, but I saw a lot of men who were struggling with PTSD, and they had not reached out to anyone for years and years and years. And so I thought, gosh, we should be able to do more than this. So I wrote a book for men. And as I was going around talking to people about that, I did a lot of talks in rural areas because I live in a regional area and I like to get out of the cities and talk to people. A lot of women turned up, and many were, um, running farms with their partners, their husbands. They were working, they were raising children, there were all of the pressures financially. And so they came to the talks, and I said, do you think I should write something for women? And there was a resounding yes. So
Mhm.
then, of course, what you do as a writer, you don't want to write something that's already out there. So I went and had a look, and there really wasn't a book there for women generally about mental health and well-being. There might be a book about a niche topic.
Mhm.
There were textbooks, but that's not appropriate for everyone to read. So I thought, okay, there's a gap there, and I better write something. So that's how it
Yeah.
happened. Yeah.
Well done. Very well done. And you filled that gap nicely with such a book tool resource. Like it covers all of that. So you can jump in and out of it or kind of go through it and pick a topic or an area that you want to work on, which I thought was beautiful.
Yeah, that's
So
right. That's right. So
let's,
each the first few chapters are fairly foundational, as you
mm,
would have gathered. But once you've read those, you can literally dive in and out to the
mhm.
topics that are relevant, because some won't be relevant. And each chapter can stand alone on those topics.
Yes. And I also want to say the tribe, this is a generational book. Like you buy it for yourself, maybe right now, depending on what your age, at 54. So there's certain chapters to Kate's point that I was really curious about to get your perspective on. And but also I say it's generational because, I think of my mom who's no longer with us, as the tribe knows. And my learning from some of the tools that you talk about was nil, right? So I really feel like this is a great tool to hand down or create conversations with, our children with as well, our adult children, or wherever we're at with our kids, just to make sure that they have these fundamentals in their toolbox.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, people are doing that. They're buying one for them and one for their sister or one for their daughter or daughter-in-law. That
Yeah,
it's naturally happening, which is lovely.
it is. So share with us, what does flourishing mean? It's a unique word, right?
It's a
For that
lovely
topic.
word, isn't it?
Yes, it
It
is. Yeah.
sounds lovely and it's fascinating. I'm hearing it more. Like, even though I wrote this book, started a couple of years ago, because obviously you've got to research it and write it, and then there's a year with the publisher, and then it's out. And I'm hearing it more at the moment. It's about thriving, basically.
Mm,
And so it does incorporate our well-being, but it's also about our sense of meaning in life and
mm,
sense of purpose, and are we fulfilled? You know,
mm,
well-being is, we can have our physical well-being, our mental well-being, which incorporates our psychological and social well-being. And, obviously that covers a whole range of territory.
mm.
So that's there. But flourishing has a particular meaning about feeling like you are on track and aligned with a life that's fulfilling and that you're flourishing, thriving.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a nurturing word to me. And I use that word with teams in my leadership when I work with leaders and their teams. And I was using thriving and it felt very ambitious, but I wanted to take that edge off of the thriving. And I was saying, well, if your team was flourishing, and then when your book came out, I think that's what really caught my eye. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Now this
Yeah.
word's showing up in another place. So
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
funny how that. So I take it as a very nurturing, because and the book really showed up for me like that. If for some of us women who no longer have mothers in our lives, that this is a great, that held me that way. That held me in a motherly kind of nurturing way, the way you wrote the content even. And to
Yeah.
take out the academic, really made it a nice, easy read with lots of stats still, like lots of the information that we need in order to make valid decisions. So, well, beautifully done, beautifully
Yeah.
done. So I think flourishing really works for that book. That's a great match.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. And again, when you write, you want to find the voice. And when I write, it's like I'm talking to a group or a client. So
Mm,
just bringing in that voice. And it was interesting. I used to do radio for a number of years with a particular person, and we spoke Saturday night on the radio, generally about Christmas and stress, but we talked a little bit about the book. And at one point he was almost a little bit hypnotized by what I was saying, and he said, "Oh, like normally he's trying to stir you up a bit and get that
okay, yeah.
conversation happening," and he said, "Oh, it just sounds like this wise." I was going to call you Father Cate, like you're a wise priest. And I said,
Mm,
well, I guess when we are helping people, that's in a way what we're doing. We're trying to be compassionate and supportive.
mm.
Mm.
Yeah, that's great. I really am. thrilled that this is even still reaching into the men. They also need lots of support. So that's super impressive that you've been working in that arena as well. Um, you've been talking to women about the book. What do you notice any common themes or threads? What issues are they raising in conversations with you?
Yes, there are some common threads. And one woman expressed it beautifully at a library talk, and the same things come up at other talks, that the weight of the responsibility that women carry on their
Mm,
shoulders, and how that wears them down, and impacts them. So that's one thing. The other is caring for, part of that is caring for everyone else rather than ourselves.
mm,
Self-criticism often comes up, and feeling, really thinking like I'm not enough in some way. Tiredness,
mm,
whether that's stress related, whether it's that responsibility related, whether it's menopause related,
mm,
new mother related, whatever it is. Um, they would be the sort of common ones. And I guess, for some, women are talking too about the particular areas that I also focus on, like anxiety or depression, in particular.
mm.
Mm.
Yeah. Do you have any quick tips you can offer any woman right now who might be listening going, oh my gosh, that's me. Like one of those is me. Is there anything you can offer them that they can just listen to this podcast and go and do and maybe achieve a little bit of I have the exhale happen, and you have
Yeah,
that relief. Yeah.
yeah. And one of them is actually that sort of pause and breathe,
Mm,
take a few moments to sit quietly and breathe, and reflect and become aware of what's going on for you. I
mhm,
think that's the first step, really, recognizing, is am I feeling like that? Am I tired? Am I carrying all this responsibility? And I think then reflecting on where does that come from in life,
mhm,
and we often make an assumption that it's just us, or that um, somehow there's something not quite enough about me that I'm feeling this way. Whereas it's for example, feeling that sense of responsibility, having a self-critical voice, it's very common for women, if
mhm,
not a universal phenomena for women, partly
mhm,
because of our socialization, so how we're raised. And a lot of the influences are subtle and some are not so subtle. The messages about be kind, look after your friends first, care for this family member, uh, even to the point of self-sacrifice. Yeah.
yeah.
And, and then we go through, and for example, for mothers, becoming a new mother, for example, no one actually prepares you or trains you for that particularly. You may be fortunate and have a parent who thinks to do that, or some other way that happens. But for a lot of women, they find they may be prepared for the birth, but they're not prepared for, okay, what are the changes? How do I care for this infant? And so there's this assumption, well, it's natural, you'll know what to do.
Right.
So there's all of these societal sort of influences. Menopause as well is the classic example of, oh well, this happens and it's natural, and let's not talk about it too
Mm,
much. Whereas it's for many women it's huge, very significant symptoms and issues. And they can often feel quite alone in managing it. And even when they present to a professional for help, sometimes the professional buys into those assumptions and biases
mm,
as
mm.
well.
Yeah, true that. As a woman who's moved to a different country, so Canadian, now living in Australia, well into my menopause, You do. Yeah, if you haven't built that tribe of closeness around you, just to kind of, I could feel those days where I'm like, oh my gosh, am I actually going crazy? It's just menopause, it's my hormones. So
Yeah,
reading things like your book really do help that go, okay, it's normal, right? Give myself
yeah,
permission to have an off day or to,
yeah,
just rest.
yeah,
Sometimes just rest.
yeah.
So that's beautiful.
And I guess the reason for talking about all those things, the influences, is to recognize, okay, I'm not flawed. You
Yeah.
know, this is how we've been raised. This is what's happening in society, and so I've got to learn these ways to perhaps take some weight off my shoulders, to learn to say no rather than people please, to set
Yeah.
some boundaries, to do some self-care, to be compassionate to myself. So
Mm,
there's lots of things that we can then, once we've got that awareness and the insight into, why we're dealing with these things, we can go, okay, I can now do something with this.
yeah.
Yeah.
My 88-year-old father is now staying with us for a few months here in Australia. And when I was thinking about you during this book, I thought, so do you notice in your audience that it kind of just drops off in terms of the age of people that you're working with or that come to you? Do they kind of just stop worrying about any of these things at a certain age? Do you notice or seen in the research at all?
Um, I think well, I think there's a few things there potentially. So certainly in clinical practice, we
Mm,
still see people at 60, 70, 80 on.
yes.
Um, and in fact, I was just talking about this with someone yesterday, retirement, for example. It's not unusual in the couple of years post-retirement for some people to really struggle. So they may
Mm,
come to see a doctor or therapist around feeling low in mood and grief around, not necessarily recognizing they're experiencing loss and grief. Um, uh, but also then, as time goes on, a partner may pass away. There may be chronic illness. So there's relationship issues don't disappear. They're there when
true.
in older relationships too. So clinically we
Mm,
see it, whether there's less probably that come to talks,
mm, yeah.
but there's still interest, and no doubt people are, borrowing books like mine from the library or going to talks locally or listening to podcasts. They're just not necessarily right in front of you.
Yeah. I'm looking there because I'm wanting to support other people who are about to move into those arenas like my father. And I find that for him, it's the world becomes a little smaller, right? So mindset has become something really important. All
Yeah.
right.
Can I just mention one
Yes,
thing interestingly?
please.
When my mum died, which was some time ago now, I went, me and my sister went through her things, working out what to do. And I found my first book, which was on depression.
Mm,
Uh, she had it, and she'd, a bit like you, written things in it, sticky notes. And she
yeah.
also had a little notebook with it, and she'd written down some of the quotes that I used at the start of the chapters and some key points. And I was so touched. She never told me she was doing that, but
Mm,
clearly she was thinking, reflecting, what's useful for me.
mhm.
Yeah, which was
That's
lovely.
beautiful. I love that story.
Mm.
I think that's amazing. It speaks into the legacy work that I do with leaders. That's why, any of those leaders who are listening right now, to Kate's point, it's so important that we build our legacy for our generations forward, like noting moments, whatever those tools and resources that we used as we went through the ages that supported us. I really think they're great to note and share with our younger generation. You talk about keys to positive aging in the book. Can you elaborate on some of these?
Yes, I'm actually going to turn to that page because they're
Okay.
very specific. So, final words.
And for any of the listeners that have the book already that might have that handy, Kate will share the page number with us.
I will. So once I actually get it, I think I've got the wrong version without the sticky note in it. Navigating Later Life. It's chapter 12, so page 315. Here we go. So first one is lifestyle related. So, healthy nutrition, basically. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really important because, again, with my mum, I used to, as she got older, I visited more and more often. And I found she was narrowing what she was eating quite
Yes.
significantly. So that's important. Keep moving, very important.
Mm.
So whether that's gardening, walking the dog, whatever it is, staying hydrated, avoiding alcohol, too much of it, smoking, etc. And then it goes more into the psychological side and social side. So having maintaining a positive mindset around aging. And I
Mm-hmm.
think, again, we have to put this in the context of whatever society you're living in, but certainly here in Australia, we're still a pretty ageist society.
Mm.
Unfortunately, I think it's getting better, but there's a long way to go. So we have to recognize that, but within ourselves, maintain positive ideas around
Mm-hmm.
what getting older might look like for us.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and keep working on managing negative thoughts, negative thinking. And the book covers many strategies around that. We do have to adapt to change as we get older because it might be less work or retirement. It might be changing where we live, whatever it is. Staying connected so that we know from the research that's absolutely key. And we don't have to have a lot of connections. It's about quality
Mm-hmm.
of relationships. And even, it's wonderful if we've got supportive family or a partner or good friends. But even if we don't have some of those things, even the
Mm-hmm.
connections we make locally with people at the community centre or the shopkeepers where we go frequently, those things are still really important.
Mm-hmm.
Having a routine, and that, I'm not an overly routine person myself, but, routine does mean we eat regularly, we do exercise, a bit regularly, those sorts of things, sleeping regularly, sense of purpose and meaning, keeping your brain active,
Mm.
managing stress, and there's lots of ways to do that, working on sleep, practicing gratitude, helping others where we can, regular medical checkups, and a regular laugh. Humour's good for
Mm.
us.
Yeah, laughing. Let's move
Yeah,
that one to the top of the list, right?
yeah,
And so many of these that you mentioned are, and not to get into the, I guess, the physiology of all of these, but so many of these just help the body repair itself, heal itself, producing hormones or chemicals that are good for us, that help us sustain ourselves in the aging. So that's fabulous. And just so the tribe knows, each of these tips you'll learn so much more about inside her chapters in the book. So you'll really can kind of pick and choose. Some you might notice that you've already been doing. And the book really allowed me to kind of do a tick. Yep, that one's good. Oh, nope, need to do that one. Highlight, highlight.
yeah,
So it's a
yeah,
great inventory for ourselves as we are looking into longevity, which I hope all the tribe members of this community are looking to live a long life, healthy long life. Yeah, beautiful.
absolutely.
So what helps you maintain a positive outlook as you get older?
Yeah. So, as I said, I think I'm a curious person, so I am often reading and watching things and listening to things and reflecting. And though, I might hear things that inspire me, so I like that stimulation. I've learnt a lot myself through my career about how to manage my own thoughts and feelings. So I think having those tools and using them, and
Mm,
sometimes I'll have to give myself a talking to, like I'll be feeling a bit grumpy or a bit down, and I know what to do. And it's like I say, I'm being a bit like the petulant child and going, no, I'm not, I just want to sit in this for a minute, and part of my brain goes, okay, well, when you're ready, like just do
but
this, you know what to do.
I love it. That's
Um,
like a little bit of self-care in there too.
yeah, and self-care, absolutely. And this year I've really focused on better eating habits, better nutrition. I have two dogs and they're Jack Russells and they're active, so I walk them twice a day,
Yeah.
and the walks are probably 45 minutes. So main, and I do like to swim. I don't get to do that as often, but I have a membership so I can go swimming when it
Yeah.
fits in with the schedule.
Yeah.
Talking to my friends. I live in as I said, a regional area. So sometimes it's a phone call on a
Mm.
weekend and a chat. I've just made arrangements to catch up with a number of them pre-Christmas to have a coffee and swap prezzies and say hello.
Mm.
Uh, and and I think for me, that sense of meaning and purpose is really important. And
Mm.
still, I'm very inspired and driven around that. So that there's always something to do because of that. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. I want to tap into something a little deeper. When you mentioned talking to your friends, some of the leaders that I work with have asked me that since they don't have large community of friendships, how would I suggest that, especially when they're moving into older age, where it seems a little more, everyone seems settled into their communities or into their friendships. Have you seen any great ideas or tips that we can pass on to our leaders that are listening if they're looking to create new friends?
Yeah. So, I think relationships, sometimes we need to build them, and so there may be people already there where there's acquaintances or there's some sort of connection. And I suppose the one of my good friends, for example, I met on a course, and over that course we connected a bit, and then we did a little bit of work related activity together, and we gradually built that friendship. So I
Mhm.
think if there are people there, it may be worth connecting more with them if you feel that connection. Um, I'm not an incredibly social group person. I know some people are more extroverted and would enjoy going and doing that. And so if you are, that's another way, obviously, to meet people in activities that mean something to you, whether that's more career focused or whether it's interest focused. And I know from people moving to this area, regional area, um, some have retired, some haven't. And from talking to them, they do tend to get involved with, the dragon boat racing
Oh, yeah,
groups or the Tai Chi groups or the Rotary or whatever it is. And they do make meaningful connections there.
that's nice.
Uh, yeah,
The thread underneath all that for me is you got to make an effort, right? It's
yeah,
not just going to
yeah,
show up. You got to find some avenues that feel like they'd be a fit for you to try and don't give up on the first go, keep going.
yeah,
And the tribe that we have here is, I mean, we're not in the thousands, we're a fairly small tribe still, but I do get a lot of requests. Hey, do you know anybody in the tribe that, might be interested in this or might? So I'm already hearing, into
yeah,
your find a community or a learning or a course where you can find commonality and make
yeah.
an effort to create friendship. I like that idea. So, what do you want people, or specifically women, to hold on to from having read the book, The Flourishing Woman, and
Yeah,
take into their lives?
yeah. Well, I want them to take into their heart probably
Mhm.
a message that they are unique and full of strengths and resources, and to really love on themselves a bit, be
Mm,
compassionate towards themselves, recognize those things, and acknowledge and sit with that and feel compassion towards themselves like they might to a loved one.
mm,
And with their body, to take those basic sort of lifestyle things on board, because it's very easy for women in careers to be so busy that they drop self-care of their bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Often it's low down on the priority list. May not be for everyone, but just a little reminder about that. And for their minds too, to take on board some of the things that we talk about in the book about how to deal with that self-critical voice and how to grow self-belief, and how to raise themselves up a little bit on the priority list, or to
Mm-hmm.
deal with specific issues that they may be, dealing with in
Mm-hmm.
life. So many, it's really hard to pick one thing, but I guess the word that summarizes it probably is hope.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, we know that we want to keep that alive, bare
yeah,
minimum, right?
that's right.
Yeah. And if we could just give ourselves permission, get out of our own way and look for these little support tips, right? Whether it's a book or a coach or a doctor, or just be okay to ask for help is really what I want the tribe to hear. Yeah, ask for help. It's okay. We got you. Let's help each other. That's what this world of humans are here for.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, it's been a very nurturing conversation over here for me, just listening to you and your calm and holding this space between us. Really lovely. So thank you. I have three fire seat questions for you.
Oh, yeah.
You ready?
Yeah.
So, what age do you want to live a healthy life to?
I'm not going to pick a specific age, a long time.
A
Uh,
long time.
I am really enjoying life and what I'm doing. And so I want to be around for a long time. So I
Yeah.
am a bit of a believer on one level about what we put out there to the universe is important. So
Mm,
I don't want to put a
mm.
specific age, but a long time.
All right, got it. That sounds like there's some karma in there. If you gave it a number, then that might manifest into something. Okay, got it. All
Yeah.
right. And so I heard you say that living a long time, because you're having such a great time now, you want to keep extrapolating that, right? Because my next question is, what will that have you be willing be, do, or have for living a long time? Is there anything that you're wanting to create in all of that?
Well, I I have already, to a degree, and I'm still going along this path of doing a lot more from home. That is,
Mhm.
my teaching and talking, even some of the university things I do now, it's, online courses. So that gives me the opportunity to be able to walk the dogs twice a day or go
Mm,
down to the beach here. So that flexibility is important but I'm still able to be very active and creative in what I'm
mm,
doing. There's more things that I want to teach. I've got about half a dozen online courses almost finished that will be up next year.
awesome.
There's more, the ideas for books are there, a number of them. So I want to keep writing, and also that flexibility gives me the chance to say, okay, I'll be able to write today for a couple of hours as well as doing the other
Mm,
things.
yeah. Well, I like you to stay around for a long time as well. There's so much goodness for you to contribute to this world, and the world needs you. The world needs more Cate.
Thank you.
What is something that scares you about growing older?
I think the thing that I have to work on not going into fear about, anxiety or fear about, are some of the physical problems, the changes that occur. And so, for example, if I don't keep moving, walking,
Mm,
swimming, then my back or neck will get sore. And so I
mm,
think it's probably the physical discomfort. And
mm.
so again, I have to remind myself, okay, well, that's telling me get back to the pool, etc. Go walking. So I think it's more the physical issues that probably, um, yeah, I would put it as the answer to that question. Yeah.
Yeah, great. So, how do you manage that fear?
I've sort of learnt to be my own therapist, so again, I can recognize it and go, okay, that's where you're going, come back, you know what to do. So I can challenge
Mm,
it.
hmm.
Or, when we deal with those thoughts, more negative thoughts, we can either challenge them and reframe it. Okay, it's just telling you to get moving again, go to the pool.
Hmm.
That's what you need to do. Or I can let the thoughts go as well,
Yeah.
detach from them. Also, I have the friend I mentioned, who I met on a course, is a psychologist, and we've done a lot of work together and teaching together and become very good friends over the years. And she and I talk probably once a week. Often it's been about work-related stuff, but also our own things. And we know it's confidential, so we are a support to each other as well.
Oh,
Mm.
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's great. And so, who's the coolest older person that you know, dead or alive? So it could like feel like a mentor, maybe a little bit, right? But I'm using the word coolest just because there's a little bit of an affinity for this person for some reason.
Yeah. Look, I think there's so many of them. Um, you know, they're I guess fulfilling different aspects of my life. I love some of the older actresses like Judi Dench and
Mm,
Helen Mirren, and just so vibrant and so beautiful and contributing so much. Um, Equally on a spiritual, I've got a spiritual interest, and um, Mary, not Mother Mary, but Mary, who was partner of Jesus, she faced a lot of the societal things where women were not allowed to say things, be recognized, and people spread rumors about her, and she wrote a lot, and it's only in recent years those teachings have come out. So I think I can feel for her. um, I've had some teachers myself who have been inspirational, people who've taught me at different times. So that's more on an intellectual level, I guess. I love Brené Brown. You probably love Brené Brown. Um, yeah, there's many.
that's
Can't
good.
can't give you one.
Yeah, that makes sense to me because you're really steeped in the world of it all. And I was super curious if you had just kind of like a go-to.
No.
For me, when I was reading your book, there was this image because I hadn't developed a relationship with you yet. So you know how your brain just kind of fills in, like you meet somebody and you're going to be going over to their house for coffee or something, and your brain kind of fills in what the house might look like and
Yeah.
what the environment like. So reading your book was like that, and what it took me back to was a woman that used to live across the street from me, and when I lived in my 20s. And she was so inspirational because at the time I knew she was about 69 or 70, and I was in my early 20s. And she would go out for a run, she'd be routine, go to the gym, she looked fabulous. And I remember the day when I thought, that's going to be me. I am not going to have like that's just, and it rears up every now and then, right? So when I'm not doing well or being,
Yeah.
promoting self-care for myself, that image will show up. And it was her who was with me when I was reading your book. It was quite amazing to go,
Yeah.
right, that was the vision of self that I wanted. So I was curious if you had someone or something like that, but you've got a database of them, which is
I've
even
got
better.
that's it.
That's awesome. All right. Well, first of all, thanks so much for taking time out of your busy, clearly schedule and book writing career. It seems to be we're all going to be keeping an eye down. If for those of you who haven't got our book yet, we'll make sure we have that put on the podcast and the YouTube to get access to it. And we'll be looking forward to anything else that you're going to put out into the world. I find you incredibly inspirational. I can't imagine the tribe not seeing you any differently than that. And you have influenced many thousands and thousands of people around you. I mean, being part of the uni and all of those communities that you were embedded in while you were doing any of your medical or psychotherapy or even your course. I can only imagine you have a massive ripple effect across the world. So that's super gorgeous. I think that's gorgeous. And for those of you who, maybe you heard something about Cate and you want to reach out to her, we'll make sure we have that. And for those of you who might be looking for some additional coaching, you hear these podcasts, you go, oh, you know what, I need to work on that. Don't hesitate to reach out to me, Diane@motionforward.co. And for all of you, I wish you all nothing but a healthy, long, fulfilling life with passion and love and kind connections. And thank you, Cate. You take care, and I hope to see you really soon.
Thank you.
Ciao
My
for
pleasure.
now.